your concept of short is?
2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. Good evening. This is Tuesday, the April 13th, 2021 work session for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And we're going to limit the physical access in the meeting room because of the pandemic. Accommodations have been made to ensure, however, that the public is able to participate. You can participate on live stream through the City of Franklin Facebook and YouTube accounts, or you can call into 312-626-6799 with a meeting ID of 8138-5348. I better say that again, 949-8138-5348 with a passcode of 478152. Callers will be unmuted and given an opportunity to comment during the meeting at specific times. There is limited viewing available here in City Hall. The public may email comments and questions prior to 3:30 p.m. on the day of the meeting to the recorder at franklintn.gov to be read aloud, and that is a hard deadline. Live comments and those submitted by email will be limited to 2 minutes, and there may be times that I have to limit the public comments to less than 2. You can go to youtube.com/user/City of Franklin or facebook.com/City of Franklin or franklintn.gov/Franklin TV. So we're called to order now, and we're going to call the roll. Alderman Barnhill. Alderman Martin. Alderman Schroer.
Sorry, Present. I thought I was unmuted.
Alderman Speedy.
Present.
Alderman McClendon.
Yeah.
Thank you. Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Berger.
Present.
Okay, now we're going to go to item 1, which is a resolution 2021-63, declaring the Board of Mayor and Alderman members shall meet on April the 13th, 2021 for a work session. And we're going to conduct our business by electronic means rather than being required to gather a quorum of members physically present in the same location because it's necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Barnhill, and see Alderman Shore made the motion.
Yeah.
So any discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Schroer.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman McClendon.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We now have an opportunity for citizens to make comments for items on the agenda tonight, and I do know that we have Mindy Tate, Director for Franklin Tomorrow, that wanted to make some comments. Do we have any other public comments tonight that you're aware of on items not on the agenda? Not seeing none. Go ahead. Welcome, Mindy.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. We are excited to come to you today to tell you a little bit more about the upcoming Franklin Tomorrow Civic Index process. This is, most of you know, or all of you know, that Franklin was named an All-America City by the National Civic League in 2020, and this process is a follow-up to the All-America City and has been developed by the National Civic League. The Civic Index is intended to be subjective and qualitative how a community ranks on the index depends on the views of residents and other community stakeholders. But this process will measure 7 components of civic capital. And those 7 components are engaged residents, inclusive community leadership, collaborative institutions, embracing diversity and equity, authentic communication, culture of engagement, and shared vision and values. And we're excited that we've trained over 30 people to act as facilitators, and we have more than 20 in-person events set up at the City of Franklin parks that have pavilions. And so we really appreciate the support of Lisa Clayton and her department and working with them. We also have virtual events set up, and people can go to our website, franklintomorrow.org, and look under the Get Engaged tab for more information on how to select one of those sessions to attend. They're about an hour to an hour and a half long. We've scheduled them several times throughout the days and even one on a Saturday so that people can participate who may not be available during the week. And then once someone participates in the conversation, they'll take a survey that asks them to rate our community on whether those 7 components exist and to what degree. It is really a self-assessment. It is not something that we will be comparing ourselves. We'll arrive at the information based on those 7 components. And we appreciate, we've got some great support from Vulcan Materials, Gresham Smith, and Chandler Thinks, which is a local firm that is helping us evaluate the survey once that's done. And the meetings are set up from April 19th through May 7th. And people can also hold their own in their neighborhood, in their driveway, in their civic group or church. So we just wanted to bring that to you. And we really appreciate the support the mayor and Eric have given us in pursuing this. And it is a component of following up on our All-America City designation. So.
Thanks, Mindy, and urge everyone to try to participate in some form or fashion.
Thank you.
So it's a great opportunity to understand how we can improve our community and civil and civic engagement. So we'll go on to item 2, which is the presentation by the Franklin Housing Commission. We have John Beschler, who's the chair, here with us tonight. So, John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and aldermen and women for this opportunity to bring you up to date on the Housing Commission. In spite of the pandemic over the past year, we have had our most of our regular meetings virtually through the Zoom and have had good attendance. Some of the things that we've accomplished in the past year is promoted and advocating housing needs by participating in a number of meetings regarding proposals for new developments around the city, specifically the Gentry Farm proposals, the Walker property, Hillhaven, and the Hill. We've also been part of acquiring a city lot and through the RFP process have awarded that property to CHP to build an affordable house. Further, we have done the housing goals of HUD. We've moved them along by administering the grant program and updating that program through issues through input meetings with the public. Most recently, the commission has worked with staff to review the CDBG allocation of funds and set up an open public meetings for comments, particularly on the Hill property, as part of that CDBG process. And that final report is due to HUD toward the end of May. The Housing Commission is always looking forward and ways to improve and further our education processes, awareness, and outreach, particularly among the lower income and minorities. We have recently partnered with the local Realtor Association to develop an education training relating to how fair housing. And later this year, we'll be participating in a housing fair with the Williamson County Realtors Association, and we'll be speaking specifically toward housing options that are available in the community. As the mayor said, I'm the chairman, and I was elected to that position in this past January, and Pam Lewis was elected as co-chair. At that time, after surveying the commission meetings, we have decided to reorganize how the Housing Commission operates. And we've done that by establishing committees. So, and we think that this will really involve the commissioners a lot more, as well as take advantage of their skills and connections throughout the community. We have 4 committees. The first one is neighborhoods, and that works with a cleanup program, looking at vacant land availability, and also happenings in the various neighborhoods around the city. Particularly right now, that committee has worked with the city staff and is having a cleanup program that's coming Friday and Saturday in 4 communities around the city. Our next committee is advocacy and communications, and that works to support ordinances that are coming up, and most recently, the ordinance for allowing affordability along the city with developers, and to reimburse some of the fees for maintaining affordable housing and offering that in the community. Also to update the commission on projects and to be available for speaking engagements. Another committee is collaborations, and this is collaborating with for-profit companies as well as nonprofits, and groups such as the Williamson County Realtors Association and the Chamber. And at the moment, the Collaborations Committee and our Advocacy Committee is working together to develop a presentation that the members of the Housing Commission would present to realtors at their monthly meetings that they have. And also in preparation for this fair housing fair that'll be later on in the fall. And lastly, and certainly not least, is Planning and Policy Committee. And this working with the city to develop allocation suggestions for the CDBG funds from HUD, as well as working with fair housing meetings. And the Housing Commission will have a fair housing focus meeting in the next several months. So this is a brief overview of what's going on with the Housing Commission. We hope to be much more engaged and much more effective by the use of these committees, and hope that the commissioners, as they have already shown much interest and excitement about this new operating process. Thank you for your time, and I'll be happy to address any questions you may have about the Housing Commission and how we operate. So thank you so much for the time. Appreciate your interest. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, John. Appreciate your input. Are there any questions for John? The only question I would have is it going to require some changes to your bylaws as far as all these committees and things? So,
no, sir. We've already had committees in our bylaws. We reviewed those at the first of the year. That's not to say that we may want to make some changes as we go forward to see how effective we are, whether we need different types of memberships or even possibly a smaller membership overall to be as effective as we need to be. But we'll certainly be talking with you and Alderman, and Alderman Speedy is on our commission, is the liaison, and we'll be certainly getting his input as we go forward into those areas.
thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, item 3 is ordinance 2021-04, an ordinance to rezone 13.81 acres from estate residential District to Plan PD 3.12 district for the property located west of Hillhaven Lane and north of Arsenal Drive, located at 171 Hillview Lane, Hillview PUD subdivision, and establish a public hearing May the 11th. If I'm not mistaken, I think item 4 has to do with the same development, and it's the development plan, and item 5 would be the parkland impact fee payment. So we'll kind of group those together to discuss them. And I think that staff, who's going to do this on staff-wise?
That'd be me, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. The Hillhaven PUD subdivision consists of a total of 43 dwelling units, and that's 11 single-family lots and 8 multiplex buildings, and each multiplex building has 4 attached dwelling units, so condo style. Envision Franklin places the subject property in the conservation subdivision design concept, which states that new development should preserve a minimum of 50% open space of the developed property. And this parcel lies adjacent to Roper's Knob at the end of Hillhaven Lane. The applicant has responded to the recommendations of Envision Franklin by offering a mixture of housing options while preserving the hillside views the community is accustomed to from this side of the natural feature. As a note, lot 11 is one of the proposed single-family lots, but its location has more than 14% natural slope, which goes against the regulations of the zoning ordinance. So as a condition of approval, lot 11 must be removed from the project. So with that, the Planning Commission recommended favorably by a vote of 7-0, and staff recommends favorably to the board, mayor, and alderman to approve with conditions. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Joey. Any questions from the board? And I think Mr. Gamble wanted to make a comment.
Yes, hi, my name is Greg Gamble, and I'm joined in this meeting tonight with Wayne Weaver, who is the new Director of Community Housing Partnership, and we're so excited to have the opportunity to work with him. Right now, I think he's kind of drinking everything through a fire hose, so moving as fast and furiously as possible. Also in the meeting with us tonight is Scott Harrison, who's the chairman of the board for Community Housing Partnership, and Bert Morton, who's with CEC Civil Engineering. I have just a real quick presentation to update you since we last talked about Hillhaven at the Joint Conceptual Workshop. As you may recall, Envision Franklin identifies this property as conservation subdivision and allows for single-family duplexes and big house architecture. The open space requirement is at 50%. The master plan has a total of 68.7% open space and includes the HHO Hilltop Preservation Area, as well as stream side buffers and a 150-foot scenic corridor along McHatcher Parkway. There are a total of 8 big houses that are shown on our plan, as well as we have 8 here, but 7 single family. When Joey referred to lot 11, it's this lot right here, and this lot will be removed as a condition of approval, and we're not objecting to that. With our master plan and with the existing site, there's a lot of stormwater that is running off of the hill, off this slope, and running right into our neighbors' backyards over here on Arsenal Drive. We're going to be introducing a 20 to 25 foot open space area that will include a berm and a swale that will redirect that stormwater to our stormwater basin here located along Hillhaven Lane, correcting a lot of sheet flow that's causing problems with our adjacent neighbors. Wanted to give you a little bit of background on this big house. The zoning ordinance actually labels it as multiplex building type, and it has a maximum of 4 homes per building. We started with a building that's 2 stories tall on Arsenal, which has a width of about 41, 42 feet, and said we want to be compatible with our neighbors. And so this architecture has a width of 40 feet. In comparison to Iron Horse, the Iron Horse buildings that are only 2 stories tall have a width of 80 feet. So you can see how the Hillhaven multiplex building is really designed with more compatibility to the existing neighborhood that it's in today. Our architect is continuing to work through various elevations, showing some diversity in architectural styles. The Planning Commission did ask that final elevations of the architecture come back to them with site plan, and we're happy to do that. We're continuing to work on final design of the architecture for not only the big houses, but for the single family detached homes as well. Let me skip down here just a second. The Cadet neighborhood has an existing 193 homes in it, and it's outlined here in yellow, and is a part of the circulation system that our proposed neighborhood would utilize. Here, located off of Liberty Pike, there is an access to Hillhaven Lane. One of the conditions is that this access become a right in, right out only. So there will be residents in the new neighborhood that will utilize this red line, which comes back to Liberty Pike. Today, we're proposing to add 43 homes to this neighborhood, which is an increase in 22%. Our traffic engineers have researched and given us the information that on this red line here at the intersection of Liberty, there's a total of 1,900 existing trips in and out at this intersection. We'll be adding 167, which is an 8% increase. At peak hour, which happens to be the AM hour where the most traffic is at this intersection, there's a total of 627 vehicle trips. We'll be adding 31 trips to the peak hour, which is an increase of 4.3%, which is about one car added every 2 minutes to this intersection. So really low impact, low additional traffic volumes there. But we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. Mayor, and I'll yield back.
No questions. Joey, did you want to add anything as far as development plan or impact fee? Or did I hear somebody want to ask a question? Vice Mayor, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I did.
Go ahead.
Can you go over, Greg, pull that map up again and tell us where that stormwater basin is? Okay, where's the road going into it? Right there. Can you point to it? The road is, it's hard to see. It's so small. Hello? I can't hear anybody. I don't know if you're on, Greg, or not.
Nobody's saying anything yet, but there's your stormwater basin.
All right, so
Yes, here's the stormwater basin located here in the lower left corner.
yeah, I don't understand why we continuously put stormwater basins on these roads. That's the first thing we see. It seems to me that we're becoming a city of stormwater basins all over the place, and they're just, I don't know. I don't think they're attractive to put out front and to see those on a development. I just think we can do a better job, but I don't know. You're driving into it there, and that's the first thing you see.
And we have to, we're following on this plan the terrain and the topography.
Right, water runs downhill.
It is. It's running downhill this direction and then running across down here in this direction. So
I know it has to, but how is that designed? I mean, it is, it's retention or detention?
it's detention. There will be no standing water in this.
Detention. So, how are those culverts? I've seen so many culverts all over town that are just huge. And I mean, it's what you see. Instead of putting it into the side of the hill and hiding them, doing, a better job of them, how are we regulating that? I just have some questions about that because I don't think we're doing a really good job with those.
When looking at a development of really any size, every 2 acres has to have its own water quality feature, whether it be a bioswale, rain garden, some kind of water quality device that cleans the water. Ultimately, you have to detain water on your site if you're creating more impervious surface. So this is really more for the detention of the stormwater after it's been treated through those water quality areas. It will sit lower than the road, and we can certainly add additional landscaping around this to make it a little bit more visually appealing, but it's right now designed as a grass lawn area.
Okay, well, I think we need to add some more landscaping around it. And also, I think maybe it wouldn't hurt for our city to address how some of these stormwater basins are being put in and how they look, because some of them are pretty sightly around town. And I just know that even over there by Lifetime, I don't think they were done very well. And just a number of places. So anyway, just make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Burger.
Peters. Unmute, please, Ann.
Sorry, if Kelly wants to answer, that she can speak before me.
Oh, thank you, Alderman Peterson. I just wanted to bring up that the 2019 zoning ordinance and our zoning ordinance today does have material requirements for those walls associated with the culvert, so that they should be clad in brick, stone, or natural stone, because we realize the appearance of some of them in the past have been less than aesthetically appealing when visible from roadways.
And Kelly, the culverts that are in those areas, they're supposed to be set back into the hill, not stuck way out. And then you have this. So is that also the case, that they're supposed to be back in towards the bank of the hill?
I would defer to the engineering department for that type of question. The zoning ordinance really relates to what the cladding should be on the stormwater features.
Well, I would just make the comment, we don't need to discuss it any further. I just would make the comment that engineering ought to take a look, stormwater, take a look at that. So when it's developed and designed, that it's put back into the hill. I think that's where it's supposed to be. And a lot of times they get put out, so they're massive and they're visible. And I just think we should address that. That's all. Thanks. And it's definitely an engineering issue. So, they can address that. Thanks.
Now, may I speak now?
Absolutely.
Thank you. If you notice, that's also part of the scenic corridor there. So that's a way to use that property that would not be able to be developed on anyway. But I do agree that the topography there kind of makes it the obvious place to put that. I did want to make sure that we have, as the staff requested, taken out, is it lot 11 that will be removed?
Yes,
So,
they mentioned that, I believe.
They did, but I just wanted to make sure. In fact, whenever I'm trying to look at it again, I couldn't really tell that had happened, but thanks.
Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead, Alderman Glenn.
So I think for all of us who are in this arena, we understand what a partnership with community housing partnership means. But I think for the general public that it would be beneficial for Welcome Wayne Weaver and or Scott Harrison to explain the affordability of this based on that relationship.
We'd love to hear a comment, and welcome Wayne, and also Scott if they want to make a comment. Scott, if he wants to make a comment.
I'll defer to Wayne right now.
Thank you, Scott. Good evening, everyone. And the intention of this PUD is for it to be an affordable development that is specifically set aside for families that earn 80% or less of the area median income. And I think we all know the importance of that in our city with the growth that we're experiencing and the prices. We've all heard it 1,000 times. That it's very important to have continued housing options for workforce families.
Mayor,
Alderman Martin, please go ahead.
could you, Mr. Weaver, give us an example of the price of, say, one of the units in the big house? What the amount is?
It is not 100% determined yet because there are other factors that that need to be decided on. So I don't know that I could say specifically the price, but it would be definitely based on the new HUD numbers that are released each year, and those new numbers did just come out.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, could I add one more thing? Just
Please.
talking about this.
Go ahead.
There are some very small lots here that normally would not have been recommended by our staff, but they are attempting to kind of fit in with the idea for the affordable housing. As I say, they're small and they won't have the parking right on site. I mean, on the lot.
That is correct. The parking will be in the parking area behind or between those 3 single families and the multiplex buildings.
Not covered parking.
No, parking just for the residents.
I know there's minimal impact on the traffic from this development. And of course, that's a very unusual intersection with Hillhaven and Liberty. So is this just maybe the chance to improve that access management there by forcing a right in, right out? We didn't have that previously, I guess.
I'm happy to answer that. We really didn't feel comfortable with the proximity of Liberty Pike and the and McHatcher intersection there with the entrance here on Hillhaven. It's something that was done when McHatcher was built many years ago. And we've noticed some dangerous turns, left turns in and out of there are typically your most risky movement. So reducing that, any additional density just increases that risk. So taking that out to a right in, right out, still providing access through the existing neighborhood seemed to be the safest approach.
And Alderman Speedy, we pulled the accident report for that intersection in 2020 alone. There were 10 accidents. They were all minor, thankfully, but there were 10 accidents at that intersection.
Okay, we need to move along. Did anybody have any questions about the parkland impact fee? If not, we're going to go on to item 6. Which is ordinance 2020-36 to rezone 35.36 acres from PD district to planned development 0.17 per 14,300 district for the property located south of Spencer Creek Road and north of McHatcher Parkway, located at 285 Spencer Creek Road, Cheekwood North PUD. And then we're also going to be looking at a development plan for this, in addition to a parkland impact fee. And also we're going to be jumping to number 9. We'll also be talking about rezoning 53.52 acres from CI district to planned PD 58909 for the property on the other side of the road, if my understanding is correctly, and also a development plan. So we're going to do all that together. I think Mr. Gamble wanted to make some separate presentations, but I want staff to weigh in on items 6 through 10, and then we'll ask Mr. Gamble to do what he was going to do, and then I have Alderman comment.
Okay, I'll make my comments just on the 2 development plans because those are the most, I think, pertinent, at least from the planning perspective. And I'll separate them so you know which one is the Cheekwood North and which one is the Cheekwood South. So for the Cheekwood North PUD, the plan or project to update the existing golf course and also add housing on the property located at 285 Spencer Creek Road The plan does propose 6 new single-family residential lots and 14,300 square feet of utility and equipment storage and recreational use, or for the recreational use. The property is located in the single-family design concept, which does permit both single-family, institutional, and recreational uses. All new residential structures will be placed outside of the floodway fringe overlay, the FFO. The applicant has also indicated that they will relocate the existing pump station for city water services away from the proposed residential lots on the plan. That specific location and design will be determined at the site plan level. The current administrative and recreational services on the property will be relocated to the Cheekwood South PUD subdivision on the southern side of Mac Hatcher. So for the Cheekwood South, the subject property consists of 53.52 acres. Again, it is for a new golf course and facilities for the golf course. The property is owned by the city of Franklin and currently vacant. Envision Franklin places this parcel in the recreational design concept. Per Envision Franklin, this concept supports both private and public recreational opportunities. It further states that new development should be interconnected through bike lanes, multi-use path, and sidewalks. The plan as proposed provides a safe connection to the parcel on the north side of Mac Hatcher and connects with established local trails as well. In addition to the course itself, the administrative offices, clubhouses, and pro shop for both this development and the Cheekwood North are located on this property. Any golf balls that are hit into the surrounding jurisdictional features, including wetlands, river streams, and others, shall be considered an illicit discharge, followed by notices of violations and civil penalties per the City of Franklin Stormwater Ordinance. Therefore, the city will require additional information regarding nets for the driving range at the site plan submittal to ensure that proper protection of the Harpeth River and surrounding wetlands is maintained. So staff or Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval, and staff recommends approval as well. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, are we going to have questions now or wait till after?
I think maybe let Mr. Gamble, he had asked specifically to make 2 different brief presentations on the north and the south property, if that's okay with you, Alderman Peterson. And hopefully he'll answer some of those questions in his comments. So we've got an hour and 20 minutes left, so I feel some urgency to let's move it on, please.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm joined in the meeting tonight with Todd Jester and Mike Hathaway. And we'd actually like to, Joe, I appreciate your introduction. We'd like to start, instead of starting with the north, we'd like to start with the south. The south will be the new clubhouse and really the new anchor for Cheekwood. This design plan that you're seeing tonight is led by Nicholas Design. We're very excited to have their professionalism, expertise, and really international renowned design capabilities brought to the City of Franklin in association with our proposal. Along with Jester Golf, 906 Studio, our firm GDC, CEC, our civil engineers. The property is being looked at and designed as a master plan with both the north and the south of Mac Hatcher. There will be a golf cart connection between the two that will be underneath the Mac Hatcher Bridge. We're talking specifically first about the south side, which in Envision Franklin is identified as recreation design concept. We are requesting a rezoning to planned district, as Joey mentioned. And this starts to paint the picture about how these properties are master planned together. We are going to be relocating the existing clubhouse that is directly off of Spencer Creek to the south side of Mac Hatcher. The access will be off of the existing cul-de-sac here at the signalized intersection. The south side will include a driving range, as well as a chipping area, a new large putting green area and a player development course here designed by Nicholas Design. The facilities will include a clubhouse with covered hitting bays, a golf performance center, the golf house, golf hall of fame, and the golf pro shop. I'm going to turn it over to Mike Hathaway, who's going to talk to you a little bit about the inspiration of the architectural design.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Greg, appreciate that. So I'll keep my comments brief, but as we look at this site, we have taken the approach of a high-end equestrian farm facility. And you'll see some of the architecture as we look at what is going to be the view down this main drive as you come into the project. The very southern, classical southern style manor house that will be the main headquarters for the Golf House of Tennessee, as well as the Golf Hall of Fame. You can see on the bottom right, the image as you're looking through the tree line drive coming up to the facility. We'll design very classical details, very much in keeping with the vernacular and the context of historic Franklin and a farm type facility. And then the other building is a clubhouse building that will be where the driving range is and gathering spaces for families, as well as a performance center. If you go to the next slide. So that building is the second part of this equestrian facility, designed to appear as a equestrian barn architecture that has grown over time. There's the story to tell. If you can kind of see the scale of the architecture, buildings that are connected to other buildings, and then ultimately to a larger facility. Just trying to give a story of what it could have been as an equestrian farm center. We're going to be using stone, board and batten materials, things that are common for a farm facility. And then you can see at the bottom a starter house, again, very much like what you would see in an ancillary farm building, much like what you might see at Hardinsdale, which is a good context for you guys to think about for this. And then I'll pass. Go ahead.
I think Todd had some additional remarks. Todd?
Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Mayor, Board, and Alderman. I appreciate the time. We are so excited. As you know, we've been in front of you guys several times over the past 36 months or so, and we feel we've really put together a team to create an active recreational, fully open to the public golf facility. It is our goal to create an economically and environmentally sustainable golf community on our property. And these key members of our team, Nicholas Design has come on board, as Greg said, with their professionalship and expertise. The Tennessee Golf Foundation, we are currently in negotiation to create a strategic partnership with them. They are all about access so that we can create as many golf access rounds to the entire general public. The Audubon International is going to be a part of our team. We are committed to the environment. Audubon International is known for their planning, construction, and also ongoing maintenance for golf courses. All of this will be powered by Golf Suites. Everyone's familiar with, we're presenting a technological view of golf, and so therefore Golf Suites is the engine that makes it go. Everybody that is on our team is a local team except for Golden Bear. Golf Suites president, Nick Flanagan, is from the Franklin Brentwood area and also has been with Cracker Barrel for over 30 years. Moving on to some of our facilities, our partnership with the Golf Foundation does include putting their operational facilities on our property there at the Golf House and including building a new Tennessee Golf Hall of Fame. Our overall goal is to create the home of golf for the next 50 years on these two properties for the state of Tennessee. If we move on to the Golf Performance Center, and this is the visual of the golf house there, Greg. And click one more.
Down to.
Yep. And here with the Golf Performance Center, this is kind of the nucleus for teaching. We have teaching bays. We have golf team bays. There's such a need in our area for high school, junior high, and even some of the smaller golf teams for the colleges just literally don't have access to golf. Also, we have a Titleist Performance Institute fitness area. We'll be proposing small golf retail. If you hit the next slide, Greg. Also, we'll have rooms for boardroom type meetings, also banquet room. We're shooting for around 100 people or so to acquire that. Also, the building will have a deck overlooking the golf course. And then this current picture that you see here, a little bit of overlook when people just say a 2-acre putting green. This is kind of the look and feel of it. It's such a community gathering place. Many people can spend long afternoons, multi-generational families, and that type of activity. Okay, the next slide, Greg. We also are going to propose a natural grass hitting tee. Now, the unique thing about our hitting tee is it also will have the same technology out on the natural grass that we will propose inside of all of our buildings. If you notice next to the individuals, they have a little stand that you can put your own personal cell phone or tablet that will also give you the same technology. Now, last time that we were before you, we were asked about netting and lighting of this facility. If you look to the left, this photograph is actually off of TrackMan's page that they gave to us. TrackMan is the technology we're speaking with. But you can see as we keep the netting the same height as the trees and landscaping that it does disappear somewhat to the site. But that's our intention, to create the netting with that same level. In the top two pictures, the picture on the right is Top of the Rock in Branson, Missouri. That's also is a Nicholas Design product. That is how it is lit at night versus the picture on the left, the daytime. So you notice it's not stadium lighting, it's all broadcast against the ground. And it's our goal to maintain the zero dark guidelines for our lighting as well. Okay, the next slide, Greg. So as we come, and this is our last conclusion, I'm trying to keep it as quick as possible, Mayor. I apologize for running a little long. Working with Nicholas Design, we are actually trying to brand and trying to create the flagship Golden Bear multi-generational golf experience on this property. This is the first of its kind. Golden Bear is teamed with myself and Golf Suites to create this. It'll have our covered hitting bays, it'll have restaurants, community event centers inside, and the whole idea is to create a family group type golf experience. So there was a lot said, so I certainly appreciate the time and send it back to Greg for any questions.
Mayor, would you like for us to review the north course, or do you want to answer questions on the south course first? They're different.
Go ahead and move on to the north, and then we'll go for questions.
Okay. The north course, again, our design team also collaborating on its design. The north course is currently designated in Envision Franklin as single family residential. The dark area that you're seeing here in shadow is the existing 100-year floodplain limits. So there are portions of the property that are currently not under or within the 100-year floodplain today. It is currently zoned PD, and we're requesting it to stay the PD base zone. There are areas that are currently owned by Cheekwood, which is shown here in green, and there are areas that are currently owned by the adjacent homeowners association, shown here in orange. The areas shown in orange are not being proposed for redevelopment. They will remain a chipping area over here alongside Mac Hatcher on the right. And then on the left, we will maintain 3 golf holes that will be used for youth practice for high school students. The area proposed for change is the area owned by Cheekwood Golf Club. This area is accessed from underneath Matt Catcher on this golf cart path here. So all of the cart staging, all of the Golf Pro Shop check-in will be on the south side of Matt Catcher. The access to the golf area will be underneath Matt Catcher to this side here. Over on the right side, we are proposing a new cul-de-sac with 6 single-family detached homes and a golf maintenance facility. The proposed buildings and lots are predominantly outside of the 100-year floodplain. There may be the need for some slight manipulation of the floodplain, but compensation will be provided at 150% for these areas. The six homes will all have alley access to garages located in from behind. There will be 2 proposed homes that front onto Spencer Creek Road. This area is currently the area where the golf shop is, the cart staging, where the lawnmowers leave in the morning. It is adjacent to 2 existing lots that are off of Dunwoody Court. Both of those are kind of side oriented to this space. We're committed to leaving the existing trees that are alongside that property boundary in a 20-foot landscape easement, and will enhance that buffer with additional landscaping as well. So Mike, I'm going to hand it over to you to talk briefly about the architecture on this side.
All right, thank you, Greg. So building on that rural equestrian farm character, we've got really 3 structures on this side of the property. A halfway house that's just like it sounds, it's halfway in year round. So it's a chance for restrooms. There'll be refreshments there, a place in case lightning hits, you park your cart underneath the overhang on the side. So again, it's very much intended to be a simple rural type architecture, maybe folk Victorian kind of scale and style. Again, something similar you'd see on the Harlansdale property. Then the pump house, we use the direction of spring houses, stone spring houses in the area, and in any other southern rural area as a inspiration for us for this architecture. So that's the intent for the pump house. Then we've got a maintenance facility that'll be obviously for the interior, a modern maintenance facility to handle the maintaining of the whole facility from both sides of the property. But the aesthetic on the exterior would be very much a rural farm approach, similar to the images you see there below on the character images. We'll have a pre-engineered building that'll be clad with board and batten, rural barn type details, vents on the roof, that sort of thing. Everything that would give you an indication that it's an existing barn that would have been there. And then on the residential lots, our intention is to create a very high-end Southern classical type architecture with large porches, because we're going to be facing the golf course. We want to create an amazing experience for these homeowners. So they'll have large porches, both front and side porches, large amounts of glass looking out to the front, again, to emphasize that you're in a very special place, a world-class golf facility. We'll have brick materials, horizontal siding, all the things you would expect to see in a historic property. All right, Greg.
So this north side of the property, again, designed by Nicholas Design, is a 9-hole par 3 course. We'll have, again, the existing 3 holes that are here that will be used for high school, but the concentration of public play is primarily here in the 9-hole par 3 course. Mayor, I will hand that back, but happy to refer back to slides if needed.
And I've got Alderman Peterson.
Whenever I was looking at this and drove out there, I had heard about some of the problems with some kind of water coming over the road or something. That looks like it's on the city of Franklin and Williamson County. Who is in charge of that road there, of Spencer Creek, right in that area?
That is a city road. It was developed under the county originally, but it is now part of the city. And we are looking at some longer term issues around how to deal with some of the water. And there's a structure under there that is rather clogged, and we're just looking at ways to have a longer term solution and improvement to that roadway and the flooding issues.
I'd add too that there's it's in floodplain, and so we've met with street department and Mark Hilty Public Works, and we're working on a engineering design to bring that into compliance so that we can stop that flooding from happening. So we're actively looking at that right now.
Any other questions or comments?
I just had a curious comment. Joe mentioned the illicit discharge of golf balls. I'm just curious how the heck we're going to handle that, because we have a lot of courses in the city that, well, I know Forest Crossing requires you to hit it over the Harpeth River twice. So, are we really going to find them on some of this stuff? I don't know.
On a development plan such as this, the buffers are established, and with that comes inspections, periodic inspections of the river and the buffers. So some of the older courses may not have those established, may not have the buffers in place, but the buffers are meant to keep any illicit discharge. It's kind of like your last line of defense. So they will be inspected and looked at. I appreciate what you're saying about how difficult it may be, but technically it is a pollutant in the stream. So we just want to.
I'm going to guesstimate there's at least 250 balls a week hit in the Harpeth at Forest Crossing, and maybe they must be grandfathered in.
It's certainly an issue and a problem, and we try to prevent it as much as we can.
And Alderman Speedy, our team has intentionally designed the golf shots on this course to go away from the Harpeth River. We've been working with staff on this.
Alderman Schroer, did you want to make a comment?
I just, and this may not be the time or place, but I've got some operational questions that may come at a later date. But so is it my understanding that the golf house is going to vacate their premises now where they are on the Legends property and move to this location? But I also heard that you all don't have an agreement yet. So where does that stand? I mean, they're kind of all tie in together, I think, in my opinion, as I look at this.
Yes, sir. Currently, Mayor Schroer, we are in negotiations. We've met, all of our planning team have met with the Golf Foundation, with Whit Turnbow. We have been planning their facility. Officially, our position is we are negotiating a strategic partnership that will benefit the community greatly. We're a little bit in the chicken or the egg. Getting this particular procedure done and then them coming on board, it all is happening in concert with each other.
Okay. Well, I don't have any concerns about it other than I hope that it turns into, what you've designed, and that it is an opportunity for the youth. And it is multi-age, and I get that. It's a big facility for sure, and it's an expensive facility for sure. So I think all your pieces have to be put into place before you can really get it done properly. And I don't think we'd like to see it done piecemeal. I think we'd like to see it done all at one time. So. That's kind of my only thought on that. So,
right, and to that point, we've brought on some local partners, Paul Pratt and Jimmy Franks, and putting together that particular financial piece to it, or sort of make certain that it comes together.
Wait. First of all, I'm not a mayor, so
I'm sorry.
Understand.
But anyway, the answer to your question, yeah, we're aware of that, and that also is coming together.
Yeah, well, I question who you bring in as a partner, but other than that.
Mayor.
Go ahead, Alderman Blanton, and I think Mr. Girth had a comment too, but I'll recognize Alderman Blanton first.
Sure, just very briefly to reiterate what Ann suggested. My I've had people in that neighborhood reach out, especially after the most recent flood. And so there is a concern by those existing residents about the poor quality of that street and the drainage on Spencer Creek. So if there's a way for us to address that in concert with this development, I don't know how road impact fees play or any of their fee structures and how it's divvied up, but I think this is a real concern for some of the residents out there. And I wanted them to hear me say that and not be silent. But thank you, Ms. Ann, for bringing it up.
I'd like to say something, Mayor.
Go ahead, Alderman Martin, and then I'll recognize Mr. Girth.
I'm sorry, Vernon. I'm really thankful that we had that flood because that's the first time a lot of people who live in this town have ever seen the water. They don't know what we've been talking about all this time since 2010. And so it was good that people who live here now can see what we've been talking about all this time and that there is a problem with the water in Franklin. And it just is. And so I'm glad that we had it at the time we had it, right when all this is coming up, because it has shown us what we need to do or not do.
Now, Mr. Girth.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman, good evening. Just a couple things more about process, if anything. First of all, while this is certainly an exciting opportunity for the city, and we've been working on it for quite some time, you may recall over our previous discussions, we have talked about fencing both along the adjacent church property and along the waterways. And we relied on the experts, which is Todd and his team and the folks at Nicholas Design, to make sure they get the heights of those and the locations of that netting in the right location. If it doesn't work out, understandably, we'll have to go back and ask them to increase the height or put them adjacent to waterways to keep golf balls and people out of them. Most important is the lease. Shauna has this evening communicated the lease to their legal counsel, Doug Hale, and I'm in the process of sending it over to Greg and Todd. It's the second draft of the lease. And while we are trying to tee up the rezonings and the development plans for the May 11th Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting, which will be a public hearing as well, we want to ensure that lease is on the board agenda as well. We'll put it on the work session and hopefully in 2 weeks, and then it'll accompany the development plan and in development agreements that are associated with these improvements. So thank you.
Mayor. Thank you. Go ahead, Alderman McClendon.
I'll be brief. I'm gravely concerned about the creation of 6 new homes as part of this project. And I'm going to need to have someone explain to me how this will not be mistaken for a Topgolf.
Greg or Todd, you want to respond to that?
Dana, could you please be more specific when you say not mistaken for a Topgolf? Sure. Architecturally, the offerings inside the building, what, in your mind, what is a Topgolf, I guess?
Well, it has games, amenities, and features that have nothing whatsoever to do with golf in order to draw people in who have little real interest in golf to drink and party, where the golf is a subordinate, almost irrelevant exercise. Now, I'm not saying that, I'm not criticizing your project. I've said this a lot, both to you privately and publicly. I will not support something that becomes a bar that happens to have a driving range attached to it. That's not what we set out to do here. That's not what we approved when we talked about the lease however many years ago. And from time to time, I have heard concepts and ideas attached to this project, like billiard tables and axe throwing and everything else. Now, I'm not saying you've said those things, but I want to know how you're going to make this a top-rate golf facility that would never be mistaken for a Topgolf. Because I have no interest in having a Topgolf.
Well, I guess you could get some assurance, Dana, in the fact that Golden Bear is on board. I'm working directly with the president of Nicholas Design, the vice president of Nicholas Design, to come on board and brand this in such a way that Jack Nicklaus himself could walk in there and be comfortable at any given day, time, or night that we have the doors open. The fact that we are going to have a restaurant, we will have alcohol, we will have golf. Yes, that's a fact.
Well, let me be clear. I'm not opposed. I'm not opposed to people having a beer before, during, and after they play golf. That's not my point.
Okay. I'm really kind of lost to give you an assurance. I mean, that's not our intention either. The only person that's even brought up axe throwing to me is yourself. So I haven't heard that. So I don't know how else to tell you other that's not our intention. Our intention is to build the home of golf for the state of Tennessee for 50 years.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if you got it one more second, one way, and I totally agree with Dana on this one, there's places for Topgolf, and the perfect place is where it is in Nashville. Has little impact on anything else. This is a great piece of property. There are certainly ways for us as landlords on that property to restrict usage to what we deem it to be appropriate. And I would hope that our lease language would have use clauses in it that would do that. So I'll just leave that at that.
Since we're talking about restricting usage possibly in the lease agreement, a number of people have danced around how long it's been since we originally approved this, and it's been a long, long time, and this is different than what we originally saw. But I think my concern is how long it's taken to get to this point. And I think there needs to be something that ties them to a date of completion rather than us waiting for years again to see this project come to fruition. So I'm ready to move on if everybody else is ready to move on.
Well, I just need to add one thing. I had this discussion about this piece of property, Ken, when I was the mayor. And it still had Jack Nicklaus, and it had lots of other things in it. So that, as you know, was a whole lot of hair ago and a few other things. So I totally agree with that there needs to be performance requirement in the lease, and there needs to be operational restrictions in the lease. I quit.
Item 11, agreement between the Department of the Army and the City of Franklin to provide real estate assistance for the Harpeth River Flood Risk Management Project. And item 12 is somewhat associated with that because it allows the city administrator to execute certain agreements in that regard, if I'm not mistaken.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make just a couple comments and then Paul will jump in and take you through the specifics. This is an approved capital investment project that the board included in your 10-year CIP. We have been working with the Army Corps for some time to both develop the project, but also develop the administrative framework that you need to do it. And it is a three-way partnership that the Army Corps and the federal government provides 65% of the funding. And then the remaining 35% is split 50-50 between the city of Franklin and the private property owner. So this provides for that mechanism and how that works. I'll let Paul kind of talk through where we are and how this will work and There will be agreements with each individual property owner, and we would like to secure some administrative authority to go ahead and do that so that we're not bringing 30-some multiple agreements on each property owner to you, if you are comfortable with that structure, that overall structure. So let me turn it over to Paul and his team to talk a little bit about that, and we'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
Okay, so thank you, Eric. The board has already approved what's called the PPA, or the Project Partnership Agreement, between the city and the Army Corps of Engineers. Recently, with the flood that occurred March 27th or the 28th, we know that two individuals were one was definitely displaced. The other one was somewhat displaced because of those floods, which brought a heightened sense of awareness to get this project moving and done, because there's obviously some benefit to those property owners that have been displaced. And so as part of the Project Partnership Agreement, there were certain real estate requirements, assistance requirements outlined in that PPA. And this agreement allows the U.S. Army Corps to do those, which is essentially relocation and paperwork associated with the existing real estate there, and the relocation assistance that's required. So this agreement allows us to move forward with it. The next item, as the mayor stated, they generally go together. Once we have the real estate assistance process completed, we will then enter into what's called an FPPA, or a Flood Proofing Participation Agreement. The Army Corps has a ton of acronyms, is what I'm learning. And what that does is it really brings the city of Franklin, the Army Corps, and brings in the 35 eligible homeowners into a single agreement. And that single agreement then brings those property owners into it. And the city then has to have another separate agreement with those homeowners to secure the 17.5% cost sharing that the homeowners are required to pay. As Eric stated, this is included in your capital investment program. Again, the total estimated cost right now is about $4.9 million. The U.S. Army Corps is paying 65% of that. The remaining $1.7 million is 35% is split by the city of Franklin and the homeowners. And what we are proposing to do and trying to do and working with the Army Corps to do is to prioritize those two individuals first. Once we get them prioritized and moving forward in the with relocation and the home raisings, we will then start engaging all the other property owners to see how many still are interested in pursuing this voluntary program. With that said, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Alderman Peterson.
I have heard that the 35 potential eligible homeowners have already been told that there will be a meeting on April the 19th to talk about getting started on this.
That is news to me. I will reach out to William to find out, and we will obviously push that out to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. I know the Army Corps has been talking about it with William. I didn't know a date had been scheduled, so I apologize about that, but I can follow up and we can make that information available.
Yeah, as soon as we get something confirmed, we will share that, but that date has not been shared with us.
Okay, well, apparently it has with the 35 eligible homeowners. I guess it's going to be a Zoom meeting. I didn't really have a chance to read it all myself.
And I can admit we've had some problems with the Army Corps pushing out information that hasn't fully gone through us yet. And so I just need to check in with William to find out what's going on, and we'll get that out to you as soon as possible.
Well, I guess I would say I'm happy to see things are on the move now. Thank you.
Everybody good? Ready to move on? Item 13, City of Franklin Contract 2021-0053, contract with Franklin Housing Authority for the receipt of up to $28,836 of CDBG funds from the City of Franklin as reimbursement for costs associated with construction of public facilities that benefit low to moderate income residents.
This is a pretty straightforward contract arrangement with Franklin Housing Authority. for some facilities improvements, public facilities, helps with their redevelopment activities. And I think Kathleen was on the line here. I don't know if there's anything specific you want to touch on, Kathleen.
Well, I was just going to say this is funding that was left over from a previous year, and I'm very pleased to be able to share it with Franklin Housing Authority toward public facilities, driveways, sidewalks, lighting. And I'm very happy to be able to share it with them and move forward.
Any questions or comments? Item 14, Resolution 2021-56, resolution to adopt the 2021 Best Management Practice Stormwater Manual.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be very brief. Ellen Moore and the rest of the stormwater team have spent the past several months updating our Best Management Practice Manual, which is a guideline for stormwater treatment implementation. And we've met with the design professional several times and discussed it. And we've met with Metro to make sure we're more aligned with what their changes that they have coming on board as well. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ellen for a brief presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Jimmy. And thank you all for your time. I'm going to share my screen real quick, and I'm just going to run through some of the major changes that we are proposing with this BMP update. We've worked with the stormwater and engineering staff, and we're proposing these observations kind of based on field observations from our stormwater inspectors and advancements in the green infrastructure. We actually also had multiple meetings with the University of Tennessee to discuss some of the stuff that they're doing. So one of the big things that we are changing is we are adding a runoff reduction credit for redevelopment to reduce the amount of stormwater management required based on the existing impervious area on the redevelopment site. I will say this is only a water quality reduction, not a water quantity reduction. So they are still required to detain at least the 100-year storm event on the site. This is only for water quality. We are also updating, these are our tiers based on the impervious area. So depending on the amount of impervious area of the pre-existing conditions, they'll be able to reduce the amount of water quality on their site. And this is an update to Chapter 1, Section 3 of our BMP manual. So some overall updates of just the green infrastructure section. We are updating our as-built requirements. The date in y'all's packet was incorrect. This is the correct date that they would be required after July 1st, 2021. And this is just to help our field inspectors with bond releases and to make sure that items that are built in the field are built per the approved plans. And then some major updates just on the green infrastructure. And these are based on field experiences as well as to match the standards of surrounding communities, as Jimmy said. We are increasing the amount of impervious drainage to some of our green infrastructure bioretention areas. And we've kind of laid out and streamlined our requirements for each of these. And then required, we've also added sheet flow that can be allowed sometimes within the buffer with city of engineer approval. And with that, are there any questions?
And I'll add quickly that we are looking to implement this on July 1st of this year. So we've got a little time. If we need to come back with any examples, we're happy to do that as well.
Questions, anybody?
Mr.
Alderman Peterson, go ahead.
I now understand that this is really talking about the quality of it instead of the quantity, which is something that I've thought about. And I really, the thing that I was thinking about, we have changed some of our zoning, and we're now allowing very small lots. And I wonder, is there going to be an effect of on stormwater because most of the lot surface is going to be, taken up by the building. And I'm thinking about residential now, I guess. It's going to be taken up by the building. And so there's going to be very little pervious surface for the stormwater to soak in anywhere.
So there is still requirements for green open space in any development that comes through, and that's in the zoning ordinance. And our stormwater ordinance requires you to treat 95% of the impervious area. So there can be a 5% that is bypassed typically, but we still require all of that impervious area to be treated with these practices in place.
So whenever we're thinking about the lot being basically covered up by the building, what effect is that going to have?
It will likely require additional stormwater practices to be put in place and sprinkled throughout the development. And those also are required to be on open space lots. So they're ultimately maintained by the HOA or a property manager.
A simple way to look at it is the more impervious you put on the site, the bigger the stormwater management, best management practices you have to build. So it's all correlated together.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Nice job, Ellen. We'll go on to item 15, which is acknowledge receipt of the final report for the Cool Springs Transportation Study.
So we've done multiple presentations on this study, but I don't think we ever brought the final study back to you. So we want to make sure that you get a copy of the final study, and I'm going to turn it over to Adam Mosier, our traffic engineer, to walk you through it.
Good evening. Sorry we added 80 some pages to your 1,000-page packet there, but got lucky I didn't include the thousands of pages of appendix in there. So just real quickly, want to go over all the presentations that we did last year and kind of remind you what's in the final report. If I'll share my screen. So like I said, we gave 4 presentations last year on the report. We looked at level of service and various things of development for different scenarios. Our first, obviously our existing scenario was taken with any recent counts we had in 2019 and then supplemented with new counts in January and February 2020, right before COVID. So they're a fully loaded system, if you will. Scenario 1 and 2, we looked at our level of service of these roadways and intersections at both 50% of approved development in the Cool Springs area, highlighted in red, and then 100% of those highlighted in red here developed out. And then for our future scenarios 3 and 4, we did the 25% future growth, which was, infill, redevelopable land, available land, and then at a 50%. If you remember back before Thanksgiving, we couldn't do a 75 or 100%. That would basically fail everything. So we tried to be a little bit more respective of what we think would be happening possibly with our future growth. And then the proposed recommendation areas that we looked at going forward, obviously infrastructure for all of them, what we could do with our existing infrastructure, whether it's widen, lengthen turn bays, do things like that. But we also looked at policy recommendations, approval practices, trip reduction strategies, and multimodal, including transit. So these were different recommendations in the final report. And obviously the recommendations, we did a timeline on those to try to see where we could fit them in as we go down the road of development. Our consultant KCI divided them into short, mid, and long-term recommendations. This was basically done because obviously some of these other recommendations would require further study, further analysis, and whatnot. For example, the micro-mobility pilot of electric bikes, we'd have to do a little bit more study on our infrastructure, sidewalks and bike lanes and things like that. So they divided up into those different terms or timelines. It's nice. We did actually implement recently in the latest street standards, which will be the next presentation that I think Joe or Jimmy is going to talk about. We did revise our level of service guidelines in our traffic impact study due to, as everyone knows, we've been presenting on already existing level of service E's or F's that are in our area and what we can do to possibly improve those, or at least keep them at the same level of service that they are currently right now. And that might include infrastructure improvements. It might include, reducing the development trips. But we have implemented those in our latest traffic impact study guidelines. So with that, that's the report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Adam?
Mr.
Alderman
Mayor,
Peterson.
I think this is my day for questions. What do you think, or have we even thought about what this last year has been like? And, I know most of the information was put together before COVID. And, I see driving down a lot of places, a lot of spots for lease, that signs that say for lease and everything. So, I don't know whether what we're going through still is going to make a difference, especially with so many people working at home. And just wondered, when would we have a chance to kind of review it later to see, what's happening?
Yeah, you'll be happy to know that our arterials are getting almost 100% back to normal on a 24-hour basis. The things that's changed is traffic patterns and peak hours. So our peak hours moved around a bit, and some of our traffic patterns have moved around a bit. So we're trying to keep up with those the best we can. And it'll be interesting to see, I think, going forward. I do think more people are starting to go to the office the way we're looking at, especially Carruthers Parkway, and we can kind of keep an eye on that and see how the volume is starting to increase on that roadway. So we are keeping track of that, and we'll definitely be looking at that in the future.
And I would echo what Adam said as far as what we're hearing at the Regional Transit Authority is that the traffic, the patterns have changed, but the traffic counts are back. And I think as people return to work, and I don't think anybody knows for sure how fast people are going to go back to their offices, but there's a lot of indication after July that's going to give us some more opportunity to better understand. But I think this is also a great opportunity for us to try to continue to figure out how we're going to implement transit in our city going forward for the future. I know we're already looking at consolidation of the trips from on the 91X and the 91 and 95. They've actually consolidated into 5 trips rather than our usual 3, but they're longer trips since they're having to come from Spring Hill now. So I think we need to keep in mind and start using some imagination how we're going to solve this problem long term. Ready to go on to the next one? How about 16, ordinance to update the City of Franklin Transportation Street Technical Standards Ordinance 2021-06.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, we'll be very brief. Similar to the BMP update, we're taking a harder look at our street standards and really lining them up with the recently approved zoning ordinance and some cleanup as well, some double information that may have conflicted. So with that, I'll turn it over to Joe Marlowe, who's done most of the heavy lifting on this, for a very brief presentation.
Very brief. All right. Thank you, Mayor and Alderman. I'm Joe Marlowe, I'm the City of Franklin Engineering Department, working with Jimmy and Paul. And I'll go through some brief updates to the 2021 street technical standards. This is a fairly minor revision. We're hoping to do some major overhauls in the next couple of years, but this is not that revision. This sheet has some of the primary updates for this revision, and that first bullet point is the impetus. We are updating, as Jimmy said, the street specs for the 2020 zoning ordinance. I'm looking at our tables, text, and drawings to match. And then the remaining elements are essentially cleanup. I'll kind of go through some of these quickly, but we are removing some duplicate information from the street specs to the standalone documents, including the traffic impact analysis guidelines that Adam Mosier just mentioned, as well as a traffic calming program. We've also updated our storm as-built requirements. These are in conjunction with the existing as-built requirements in the surety checklist, which includes video documentation of storm infrastructure. We've removed some street designations that were little, if ever, used, and we've updated most of our standard drawings, although many of the updates are minor in nature. But we have added some new details. We've added accessible on-street parking details that are PROAG compliant. This is so that our design partners can include them in their drawings and have PROAG compliant on-street parking spaces. We've also updated our streetscape, streetlight details in our ITS standards. We've updated an alley section to give it a crowned alley in response to some maintenance challenges that our street department was having. And we've had minor revisions and clarifications to all chapters, but I'll stress many of those outside of the zoning ordinance are very minor. Most of the text is actually similar to what we have right now. All of this is posted on the engineering development webpage. We posted it on March 15th. That is for the 30-day public review and comment. We met with the design professionals in their April meeting last Wednesday to discuss this. We're hoping to come back to BOMA for a couple of readings and are looking for a proposed effective date of July 1st, 2021 also. And that's all I had. I wanted to keep it brief, but if you have any questions, I would be happy to take those now.
Thank you, Joe.
What's
Any
Crowned
questions?
Alley? Yeah, what's Crowned Alley? What is that?
The crowned alley is crowned like our streets, where the middle of the alley is higher and it slopes down to the sides. Right now, many of the alleys are an inverted crown. They're V-shaped, and that's caused unraveling, premature unraveling of the alley itself. And that's why we've gone to that crown section.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Seeing no other questions or comments, we'll go to item 17. We had a citizen approach us, and I don't know if he is on the phone tonight or on Zoom. Someone that was associated with Tom Miller, former mayor of Franklin. This particular group had asked that the board discuss possibly naming a street after Tom Miller, and the one that they had suggested was the entryway to the park at Harlansdale Farm that looks directly down at the historic barn. So we may need a little bit of explanation what our street naming policies are currently. So if we could do that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did provide some information. This request was made by citizens that had approached myself, the mayor, with this request, and then presented it to you a couple meetings ago. We did try to pull from some existing policy, both related to street naming, but also street naming of facilities. There is actually an update of facility naming policy that will be coming to you probably in May that is a little more oriented towards naming rights, et cetera. But we did want to let you know that that was something we were working on to sort of update or modernize that component of our policy. But specifically related to street naming, we look at a couple things. We look at the specific situation in terms of working with emergency dispatch to make sure that there isn't any confusion related to that name. There isn't a name elsewhere in the city or even in the county that might create confusion with dispatching emergency personnel. There does not appear to be in this case. There is also the matter of does it create disruption, inconvenience, problems for folks who might have to change their mailing addresses, et cetera. On that latter point, that is not a problem in that the Park at Harlansdale would maintain its Franklin Road address, and there is no other addressing on that street, and it is currently an unnamed street within the park that comes off of Franklin Road. So bottom line is really the board can act as it would like here. There is not anything I think that prohibits you, but it is a precedent to look at. We have renamed streets in different situations. We just named a street adjacent to Fire Station 7 in the southeast corner of Franklin as well. So this is open for you to give us guidance, direction. If you need more information or more policy option developments, we know whenever we take any action, we set precedent, and we want to be mindful of that in this situation and how it might apply and anything else that comes up in the future. So open it up for any questions. Lisa's on the line. She's worked on the naming rights piece. Our BNS team typically works with the addressing component, and we'll be glad to answer any questions or help in your discussion.
Okay, any comments or questions? Was there any outside comment that we needed to recognize, Angie?
Is there anybody on the line that wanted to talk to this item? Go ahead if you did.
Okay, we'll move on to item 18, Street Department's Main Street Sidewalk Repair Project.
That's a tongue twister for sure. Good evening. So item number 18 is actually a street department, engineering department combined project. And in 2019, the board approved approximately $2 million in allocations toward the improvement of the Main Street sidewalk repair. William Banks has been working with a consultant to develop some concept drawings, and William's going to present a presentation, and then we'd be more than happy to open it up for discussion and or some direction. William, if you would.
Thank you, Steve. Quick background to this project. The scope is to rejuvenate and repair the Main Street sidewalk from 5 Points to First Avenue. The existing sidewalk pavers are faded and uneven, and the sidewalk street tree grates are aging and need replacement. The street department also spends a significant amount of funding annually to maintain and fix the pavers in the sidewalk and crosswalk. That's the reason this project was luckily approved in the latest CIP. So with Main Street being a hub of commercial downtown businesses and pedestrian activity, we knew there would be a need for some downtown stakeholder engagement. So Streets and Engineering worked with CT Consultants, our streetscape consultant, to prepare a quick schematic plan and artist renderings to give downtown stakeholders, kind of give them a grasp of what we are planning so we can gather their input. But before we begin this public outreach, we wanted to get the board's input on a few different items for the direction of the project. Mainly, there's two items we want to take note of tonight. One is how we address the street trees and grates. The other is how we rework the engraved memorial pavers. So let me try to share the presentation now. So the first of the two items is the street trees. Within this presentation, we have our existing conditions, and we have 4 different concepts. We focused on the 4th Avenue intersection to the square for this, for our plans, just to kind of keep it simple. Whatever we do here, we would of course replicate in the other blocks from 5th to 1st Avenue. With the street trees on these, you can see a lot of this project is removing the concrete pavers and replacing them with a new brick decorative paver. That's what's shown in orange here. Concept 1 would be to leave the existing street trees where they are. We would just address the metal grates and do something with them, either remove them. I think we've been using some rubberized mulch in some other areas of downtown. Concept 2 would be to do a little more invasive work, widen and lengthen the existing street tree grates, allowing the trees to get a little more room to grow. Concept 3 is a lot more work, where we would install silvacells. We would tear up the sidewalk. The silvacells would allow room underneath the sidewalk for the roots to fully grow, and these trees could become a fully mature tree. Concept 4 seems to have a lot of internal staff, good feedback from staff, but we know there's some drawbacks as well. Concept 4 proposes we move the street trees out into bioretention planter areas. These would be new kind of curb extensions out in the roadway. This would, some of the pros and cons is the street trees, by doing these bioretention areas, the trees can have way more room to grow, just like Concept 3. Means we don't have to replace them as often as we usually do. We get a wider sidewalk, so we have a bigger ADA path. We know some of these areas in downtown can get a little cramped because of the furnishing zones, where benches, tables, and seating is utilized by some of the businesses. So that would open up the sidewalk for that. But the biggest concern we have, and we know parking is a hot commodity downtown, what we show in this concept is in this one block, we could lose 2 parking stalls. So that's one of the items to kind of discuss tonight with the board. The second big item is, what do we do with the engraved memorial pavers? I'll skip some of these sections since we're running a little bit late on time. Before I get to the memorial pavers, this is the existing layout of the 4th Avenue intersection, looking towards the square with the street trees in the sidewalk. We had artist renderings showing Concept 4, because we know this would probably be the biggest discussion point of the street tree issue, showing the street trees moved out into these curb extensions. Close up of this would be this example. The roadway drainage could still flow into this and flow through it, but it does have a wider sidewalk area and frees up a wider furnishing zone for the businesses. So the other big issue is these memorial pavers. As you can see, these are the larger engraved concrete pavers that the Heritage Foundation has managed over the last 30 years. As you can see, many of them are in poor condition, and they can't even be read. We know these have some sentimental value to the people who've bought these. So staff wanted to work with the board, let you know that we want to reach back out to the Heritage Foundation and the DFA to kind of formulate options of removal, relocation, or replacement of these. On the presentation, we've got a few more examples of kind of the condition, where this one I'm showing now is totally worn away. And this one, of course, is cracked. So though that's a kind of a quick synopsis of the 2 big concerns with this project. And with that, I will turn it back over to Steve if you have anything else to add.
Thank you, William. I appreciate you running through that presentation. Now, we'd certainly like to open it up for discussion. And as William indicated, we kind of feel like those 2 areas, the memorialized pavers and moving the street trees from the sidewalk into the roadway, would provide the most feedback, or that's where we need the most feedback, rather.
Well, I tell you what I think we'll do tonight. I anticipate there's going to be quite a bit of discussion on this. And I think that that was a great presentation to give us some vision, William, as far as let us think about it. And we'll bring this back to the next work session and talk about it at that time. So we're going to.
Mr. Mayor, I have one quick question before we bring this back.
Okay.
And when you bring this back, could you also bring back to us if the trees are taken out and put out so we get more sidewalk area, then what kind of trees are put back? Are they're not going to be the same trees, I don't think, because I don't know how you can transplant them out. And if you do, what size trees would they be? Because that's going to change the entire look of Main Street and the entire landscape look of the trees. So can you talk to us later when you come back about the trees, the size, the type, the shape, and how you would transplant them or what you would replace them with? Thanks.
Good comment. Okay, we're done, and we'll see you here just in a few minutes for the voting session for the Board of Mayor and Alderman. Good job.